Hey, everybody. Today I want to talk about being human theologically. I want to talk about being located and active agents. And in order to do that, I have prepared a Prezi for us to walk through. So I'm going to share that screen with you and, uh, and then walk through this together. Oh, hold on. Now I have to hit present. There we go. Okay. So when we talk about being human, the Shakespearean quote, "To be or not to be," took on new meaning after World War II when Paul Tillich wrote "The Courage to Be." It's a theological address. And he said that just being, existing, he was an existential theologian, that just existing in our modern technological society, just that in itself took courage. So that's what we want to talk about today. I want to break it down into some smaller elements. So this is the first set of things I want to deal with. When you're talking about being human, a lot of people want to break it down to what's the essence, the essential element that unites all of humanity. We had talked in the other video that Paul Ricoeur said that humans, all human cultures have four things in common: that they use words, that they are narrative, they use stories, that they are social, they're interpersonal, and that they're political or organized. But that's society, that's culture. When academics try to address the essence of what it is to just be a human, one of the things that gets thrown around is these, they're kind of funny and actually quite humorous, enjoyable little exercise of saying like homo religiosus, that humans are essentially religious creatures. That's part of being narrative. Or homo politicus, that we're political to the core, that is at the lowest level of what unites us, that is essentially human. Homo economicus, I've heard argued for that, that this is the modern expression of being human, is economic. And then I came up with one, which is homo narratus, that, we're definitely mammals. You can tell from the nipples and belly buttons. So that's the biggest indicator that we are mammals. But we're different than other mammals in that, for instance, I don't see many deer standing around talking about what it means essentially to be deer. That's just not something that I have witnessed. But humans are uniquely concerned with what it means to be human. We tell ourselves stories, and whether that is antiquated notions of the gods being angry or newer religious expressions, we live into stories. This is why consumerism and its appeal to our desires is so essential, is that it appeals to something deep within us, and the idea of living into a story grips us. We tell ourselves story about our family of origin, or the role we play in the world, or our attractiveness to the people we want to be attracted to, or whatever it is, how we fit into the universe. There is a danger when talking about the essentials, this is one of the concerns, is to essentialize and to say like at the lowest common denominator. And that's can be a dangerous game, because if you try to say that this is like essentially, this is what it means to be a woman, right? And then people try and pigeonhole and say this experience, men are this way and women are this way. So it can be a very dangerous game, and we need to account for that. So when we talk about being a part of creation, however you would complete this sentence, humans are blank. We want to make sure that we say that humans are at least, at minimum, a part of creation. Now, we may be a unique part of creation. We may be a special part of creation, but we want to make sure that we don't, as some in the past 500 years have done, held up these views that humans are distinct from creation, that God made humanity different than God made the rest of everything else, and therefore how God interacts with us is very different than how God interacts with the rest of creation, and that ultimately we are not a part of creation, not subject to the same rules that govern nature, that we are distinct from that. And obviously that's something to be avoided. So we want to say that while we are biological, at a minimum, we are biological, we're not just biological. There is something unique and distinct about humanity. We talk about this as the imago Dei, the image of God. We're image bearers. We talk about this as being the pinnacle of creation. We try and address this in different ways, that we are spiritual creatures, and all of those have some things that work and some things that are limitations and concerns within them. The thing I want to make sure is when we talk about being human, we can say whatever we want, but we're not less than biological. And this becomes important in things like whether it's our sexual desires, our interactions with the earth for the food that sustains us, our dependence on each other as communal creatures as we get increasingly isolated by our technology. Whatever else you want to say, we are at least biological, but we're certainly not less than. And so whatever else, however you would finish that earlier sentence, that humans are blank, we want to make sure that it's at minimum that and not less than that. So we have both accounted for and attended to this thing that unites us, this common element of being human. But we don't want to do it in a way that is reductive and makes humans less than something. We'll cover that a little more upcoming. So this reductive move, the reason that it makes me nervous when people say nothing but is because in the Enlightenment, we have inherited this propensity to reduce things down to their lowest common denominator. And one of the expressions of that is foundationalism. Rene Descartes saying that, I doubt, therefore I am. I doubt it all the way down to the things that I can't doubt. Or I think, therefore I am, is how sometimes it gets translated. So when people say we're nothing but narrative mammals or religious, whatever, right? The nothing but is a really dangerous approach because it simplifies down this complicated web of meaning, this web of life, this web of existence that is so multi-layered and intertwined, and it reduces it down to one thing that can usually be easily dismissed. So when people say religion is nothing but blah, 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 they're dismissing so much of religious history and religious community of people's experience. We do it all the time. We do it with sex. We do it with the economy. We do it with religion. And it's a really dangerous thing that has infected so much of our cultural exchange when things get reduced down. That reductive move, the next step is often dismissal, that's how we explain it away, instead of the surplus of meaning, saying that in these things that we want to examine, there is an overflow of possibilities, a plurality of possibilities that we want to examine. Instead of stripping it of all its meaning, we actually want to breathe life into it and see how much can come out of it. One of the approaches that I want to tell you about that has really helped me do this is just this idea of the dipolar. So when you are given or you have inherited two extremes, for instance, the flesh and the spirit, or saved and lost, right? However it comes to you, creation, evolution, Republican, Democrat, we've just got all of these binaries that get given us. And sometimes it can be difficult to work your way or think your way out of them. One of the best things I've ever found is this idea of the dipolar, that even if you just have two things, male and female, however you conceptualize that it is actually the interplay, the relationship between the two, that is a third dynamic element. And that dipolar nature. So when we talk about human and divine, right, this is what we're going to try and say about Jesus, that he was fully God and fully man, okay, something like that. Or we would say transcendent and immanent. This is how we like to talk about, say, in the Trinity. We have God as God exists in God's self. So that would be one element, one pole, and then there's a consequential nature to that. And that's how God relates to the triune God, relates to God's creation. The dipolar is the interplay and the relationship between the two, and it takes on a life of its own. It is such a vital dynamic to account for. And then there's a surplus of meaning that I have mentioned a couple times, that there's an overflow of possibilities, a multiplicity of interpretations, and a plurality or a diversity of implications and applications. By taking on this idea, as Bonnie Miller McLemore talks about the web of meaning, it's not, things aren't static, right? This is why we kind of bristle at the idea of being objective, because you're not an object, right? And the thing you're studying, like humanity or human culture, like human existence, isn't an object of study. That it's subjectivity all the way down. People are subjects. You and I are subject to the histories that have brought us here, to the limits of our language, to the limits of our experience. So we are subjective, and that's nothing to shy away from. That's actually something to embrace. And the surplus of meaning indicates that in a world like ours, you can't say God is X, right? Singular, and reduce it down, that reductive move to one thing. Or the only thing we can know about God is what's in the Bible, right? That reductive move. And this is why we talked about the Wesleyan quadrilateral, that there's scripture, there's the tradition, there is reason, and there's experience. And all four of those are valid loci, for doing theological reflection. So the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that as humans, we are both formed and informed by so many elements, and we want to account for them and attend to them. So like, for instance, in the power of language, we, as human beings, being vocal creatures, we have to learn a language. So that means that we are formed by that language first, or by our family of origin, or by our society and its expectations on things like gender and race and religion. We have been acted upon, right? Because language is socially constructed. And so as we learn it in society, in a social setting, that at first we are acted upon, and then later we take the language and it enables us to express our true feelings or our true innovations or intuitions. But first we have been acted upon. So we are agents who act, but it's also important to know that we have previously been acted upon, because that means when we act both somewhat in our own freedom with agency, but also with the reality that we have been socially conditioned, we've been groomed to value certain things and believe certain things and behave certain ways. And so we are both, in that sense, free. We have free will. I can say whatever I want right now, but I'm also limited. I'm limited in so many ways. I cannot be a black woman. I cannot be in India right now. I cannot act as if I was raised Hindu. I can't be in the 1800s. I can't be in the 22nd century. In so many ways, I am limited. So as a free acting agent with agency, I do the best I can, right? Because in my freedom, and I'm responsible for how I do that. But I also have a limitation in that I am selecting from a very small number of options on a menu that has been given to me. And so there's a givenness to human existence. I am free within that, but I'm free within a very limited menu. And the two examples that I'll close with is some people know that it was only in the last 100 years that pink for girls and blue for boys became a definite thing, that it was made into like a concrete set rule. That before that, it had been different in different times and in different cultures. And so it's funny to me that if colors can be gendered, and the other story I tell is when I first moved to LA, I picked up this new hand motion like this, and some people didn't like it because apparently it's pretty feminine. And my pushback on that was hand motions can't be masculine or feminine. If they are, then this is a masculine. It's very manly. I'm a man and I do this hand motion. But the bigger issue is if colors can be gendered and hand motions can be gendered, then we have to be very aware in this theological conversation that we are dealing with so many things that have been given to us, we've inherited. They have formed us. We act as social agents within that after we have been socialized or conditioned or groomed by these social frameworks. And so as we talk about being human, we want to both account for and attend to everything from language to politics to sexuality to religion. And we want to attend to those, not in a way that reduces them down and simplifies them into being a one-dimensional thing, an object of examination, but in a way that actually expands them like the registers in a musical scale that we are accounting. If you listen to a song, yeah, we hear the words, we hear the melody, we know there's a harmony, there's a rhythm, right? There's the bass line, there is the timbre of the different instruments. We're accounting for all of these different registers to say that when we are addressing what it means to be fully human in the way that Jesus was fully human, we are accounting for all of these things and so much more. And that's why we have to do it communally. That theology is done best dialogically, in dialogue with other people, and communally, because it would be difficult for any one person to account for and attend to all of these various things. And the real stinker is the things you've never thought of before, the things that escaped your attention, the things you didn't notice. And so that's why we need each other to reflect from all of these various points, this surplus of meaning, so that we can just begin to get a handle on the complexity of what it means to be a human in relationship with other humans. Okay. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I know that that's like drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot coming at you, but I just wanted to begin the conversation about being human and what it means to be fully human, so that when we talk about Jesus and our Christology, that we are actually saying something that we've thought about.